Okay, let's go ahead and get started today. This is going to be a short lecture because I'm going to essentially announce the midterm exam and talk about how you should prepare for it. All right, first off, the midterm exam will be held 1 week from today, meaning on October 19th at 5 to 7:15, and that's going to be in person in room ATC 255. So come to ATC 255, be there at 5. The exam will be given from 5 to 7:15, and that's all we'll do that night is go through and have that. A study guide is posted on the course site, and as an additional piece of information, I will be available for questions on the Wednesday class. So 5 to 7:15 in ATC 255, I'll come in. If you have questions on things as you're going through the study guide, you have questions, you can go through it during that time period. I'll be there to help you on answering anything. And as always, if you have other questions that come up before then, or you have other questions that come up after then, email me, send me a text message, get a hold of me somehow, and I'll be sure to answer those. Now, let's spend a little bit of time talking about the exam. The exam is going to consist of 3 parts. It'll have part 1 and part 2, which are given together on paper. And the part 1 is short answer. I'll ask you a question like, what's a variable? How do you declare them in Python? I might ask you something about like functions. What's a function? How do you pass parameters to it? How do you return values from it? What happens if you don't return a value from it? So just be prepared to do that. So in those, you'll like write down on the paper kind of a short answer in a complete sentence in a paragraph that answers whatever those short answer questions. And there'll be a few of these. And then there'll be some of these code analysis things where I'll give you some Python code. Like I'll give you a snippet of Python code and I'll say, what is this program's output when you execute it? So what I want you to do there is write out what the output would be for that program when it executes. If the program contains some sort of bug or an error, then I want you to say this program would not run because of this problem on this line, and identify the error and explain why the code has a problem. All right, so those 2 parts will be handed out together, and they'll be on paper, and you'll write them down. You won't be able to use the computer for this. We'll talk about that in a second. But part 3 is a programming assignment. You'll be able to use a computer, so bring your laptop or use one of the machines in the lab to do this. Or if you want to, you can write out the code by hand on paper. But the idea here is I'm going to give you a little programming task. You're going to write code that accomplishes that specified task. And there'll probably be just a few of these, like maybe 2 or 3. A simple one, a little bit harder, a little bit harder. But if you've done the labs and you've understood the labs, this should be relatively straightforward. So just make sure to be prepared to do a little bit of programming. All right, so instructions for part 1 and 2. Part 1 and 2 are open book, open notes. So if you have a notebook, feel free to bring it. You cannot, however, use electronics. So no phone, no computer, no calculator. So it's all on paper. So I'm going to distribute this part first. I'm going to hand out part 1 and part 2. Those will be together. You'll complete those and you'll submit those to receive part 3. Now, once you turn in part 1 and part 2, the paper for that, I'll give you the paper that has the programs for part 3. And then that's also open book, open notes. You can use the computer, but you cannot communicate with other people. So in other words, you can use the computer, but you can't get on Discord. You can't get on Stack Exchange. You can't get on like any other kind of chat site or send emails to people and get answers. You can't go to rentacoder.com and pay somebody to write those. You have to write that code yourself. And really, you're going to be a little bit time constrained anyway. So focus on writing the code, getting done what you can. And then when you need to submit those, you'll submit the source code files on Blackboard on the course site to be graded. But notice the whole thing is open book, open notes. No electronics for part 1 and 2. But then you can use the computer for part 3 to write the programs. All right, additional instructions. You'll be given part 1 and part 2 on paper. You'll complete those and you'll return that portion. After that, you'll be given the paper for part 3. And when you complete the programs for part 3, you'll submit them on Blackboard on the course site. There'll be a submission place just like for your assignments. You'll submit those. Also, if you have some sort of accommodation needs, let me know before the exam. In other words, send me an email to remind me, and I'll make sure to make that available or give you extra time or whatever you need for that, larger font size, the exam in an electronic format to use with a reader, like a Braille reader, whatever you need, let me know so I can accommodate that. All right, so advice on how to study for this exam. I will post a guide that tells you, like a study guide that will include some practice questions and answers at the end. So make sure you understand each of the concepts listed in the outline of the study guide. Well, there are two things I'm going to post. One is a study guide that has an outline of all the concepts that we've covered so far up to this point in the semester. So make sure to look at that. Make sure you understand those things. Make sure that if there's something there you don't quite remember, maybe go back and watch the videos. All the videos are online for you to look at whenever you want. You can go back and look at any of the lectures to study. The second thing I'm going to put on the site is the practice guide. And that practice guide, essentially what I want you to do is there'll be some sample questions for the kind of program analysis part. So you should solve those, check your work against the answers at the end of the practice guide. And if there are things that are missing or wrong, make sure to go back and look at why those are wrong. So make sure to do that. And you can do that on Wednesday evening if you want to, while I'm there to help you, or you could do it on your own time. But if you get through the practice guide and you did well on that, and you've completed all the lab assignments and understood everything you've done in those lab assignments, then you'll be in pretty good shape for this midterm. The final thing is come to that review session. I'll be in the ATC 255 on Wednesday during normal class hours. Come in, ask questions, get help if you need it, work through the study guide if there are things that you don't understand on that in the practice questions or in the outline in the study guide. Let me know. I'll be happy to answer. Make sure to bring a mask when you come in though. And again, the midterm will be held in person, ATC 255, October 19th from 5 to 7:15. The study guide and practice guide are posted on the course site. So that's all today. Work on your labs. Start looking at this practice stuff before Wednesday or come in Wednesday and do that. I'll be in the classroom to help you if you need it. So that's all we're going to cover today. A little bit short time, so work on your labs. Get ready for the midterm because next Monday evening it's midterm time. And make sure you're prepared for that. That's it. See you Wednesday. And I really hope to see you next Monday for the midterm. Don't miss it.